today I wanted to talk about one drug that was initially very effective for me, and that is propanalol. So propanalol belongs to a group of drugs called beta blockers, and what this does is basically helps to slow down the pace of your heartbeat, and it blocks some of the stress signals going to your body so that it basically calms you down. And you may have heard some athletes have taken these before the Olympics and so on. And they're prescribed to people with anxiety because it basically alleviates a lot of the unpleasant symptoms like a racing heart and that kind of flooding sensation of adrenaline that you get from social anxiety. Now, I was prescribed propanalol by a private physician under my healthcare plan when I was living abroad as an expat. I was working for the government overseas in China, and I went to see the doctor because basically I had tried a lot of different stuff without going down the medicated route. And I was just so desperate because I was going into Monday morning meetings and falling apart physically. It was taking such a toll on me. One-on-one meetings with my boss were so nerve-wracking for me. I was even having to go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, accompanying diplomats to interpret for them. And this was very formal occasions. They were very intimidating for me. I was just pouring with sweat, feeling sick, racing heart, all of those things. And I just couldn't cope anymore. So I went to the doctor and I said, look, I've been trying to deal with this. I'm 32 now. I've been dealing with this my whole life and I can't do it anymore. I need some medicated help. He recommended two things. And one of them, which he prescribed for me, was propanalol. And I got to say, shortly after taking this, after starting on this medication, like the doctor told me, just take it situationally. You need this, it's not something you take every day. It's just before you go into one of those meetings or a big event, take a few of these or whatever it was and see how you go with it. It should help your symptoms. So not long after seeing the doctor, I had to deliver a speech in Chinese to a room full of foreign diplomats who were all stationed in Beijing. And as you can imagine, I was shitting it because I didn't like public speaking. I didn't have practice in it. Plus, I was delivering it in my second language. So I was just super nervous. And, about an hour before the speech, my heart was just starting to pound up in my chest. I could tell this was going to get really bad by the time the speech actually arrived. So I took a few propanalol. Can't remember exactly the dosage at that time, but I took a couple and then a couple more, something like that. And what I found very quickly is that my heart was still beating rapidly, or quite rapidly, but the sensation was no longer like up in my throat, like heart was pounding here. I was aware of it, but it was as if the sensation was much further down in my body. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is new. This actually feels like it's under control. And I thought to myself, this is going to be okay, actually, because I'm aware that there is this stress response, but it's not like taking me over. It's not like blood throbbing through my head with every heartbeat. And then as the time got nearer, I could really start to feel their effects. And I was like, wow, yeah, I realized like there's an element of nerves, but I'm okay. This is going to be all right. So I went to the podium and it was like, first time I'd ever experienced anything like this. It was like I was in a different dimension because I could get up and instead of getting tunnel vision and everything going down and this sea of faces out there, which I dare not look at, I was actually able to go up to the podium and just look around at all these different ambassadors and diplomats from different countries sitting in the audience. And I had another colleague, a Chinese person on the far end of the stage, and I sort of looked at them and I was just engaging, taking the whole thing in. And it was as if time had slowed down. I was in this thing. It was like the Matrix where he's dodging bullets. And I was like, this is truly amazing. And I delivered my speech. I remember now I made one particular error, but it didn't bother me. Generally, I delivered the speech 1,000 times better than I would have anticipated if I'd done it without medication. And I just thought this was incredible. I remember stopping to pause, make a little joke, wait for people to titter and laugh. And then I'd look over at my Chinese colleague and check it had landed. And I was just taking my time. I felt like I was in control of it in this room. And I was holding forth on the stage in front of all these, like highly esteemed, highly ranked diplomats. And it was just incredible. I'd never had anything like that. So I left that experience thinking, this is truly amazing. And I then started to take it before Monday morning meetings, which I had always hated. I took it before meetings at the MFA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it was really great. In every situation there, it really worked. Calmed my nerves, didn't feel the stress response so strongly at all. And I thought this was great. And then something happened, like after maybe, I don't know, a month of taking it, roughly. It's a while ago, so I can't remember specifically. But after a certain amount of time, the effects really started to taper off. And instead of taking 2 or 3 tablets, I was taking like 6, 7. I remember one particular meeting before in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I'd taken like 3, nothing was happening, 3 more. And I ended up taking like 7, I think. And that in itself, on top of the coffee I'd had after lunch, it was just like making me feel very nauseous. And then I was still nervous in the meeting. And I was like, oh, right. So now we've reached that point of diminishing returns. You're still taking the medication. It's not delivering these effects. And that continued for a little while. And then I realized, damn, the superpowers of this medication seem to have worn off. I'd basically used it so much that I built up a tolerance, and it was no longer having the desired effect on me. So at that point, I actually tapered off and I stopped using propanalol. So my experience of propanalol, and in telling you about this, I'm not trying to say you should do this, you shouldn't do this. I just think it's useful getting people's personal experience with it, because I think it's really sad if people get their hopes up super high and they're like, I've got this new amazing beta blocker from the doctor and it's going to sort me out for good. In my experience, yeah, it did feel like that to begin with. But sadly, as with other medication I've taken for different stuff and for social anxiety, I found that it kind of petered off. The effects wore off. And in the end, it was making me feel almost worse than not taking medication. It was making me feel nauseous and not well. So, by all means, if you're really desperate, try it. And I hope that you also get those amazing life-changing effects, that I had to begin with. And I hope they continue for you. I think there is a chance with a lot of these medications that they lose their efficacy over time. You build up a tolerance. And my viewpoint is really, from what I've been through, just to go down the more natural route, which I think is more sustainable. It's not hepatotoxic. It doesn't damage your liver. And ultimately, I wanted to recover fully and not have to use any medication. I didn't want to be supported in any way eventually. Once I'd been able to wean myself off everything, I wanted to be in the situation I'm in now, where I eat healthy, I eat clean, I exercise, and I live a holistically healthy lifestyle. And for me, medication wasn't really a part of that. So I'm not in any way trying to discourage anybody if you want to go down this route and try propanalol, but just my experience was that it was great to begin with, and then it wore off as time went on. But I'd be really interested to hear what your experiences with propanalol are. Please leave your messages and your comments below this video, because I'd be very interested to hear from you. And please subscribe to this channel so that we can help more people overcome social anxiety and start living the life that they're meant to live. Thanks a lot.